Steve Wormer is a John Maxwell speaker, trainer, and Kingdom Transformational Coach. He has authored 3 books and loves helping people from their trials to breakthroughs. Today, he will be sharing love back from the brink. Steve, welcome to the BRI Talks stage.
It was this time of year, 21 years ago, that I found myself at a Middle Tennessee park on a very cold but yet sunny winter day. I was hanging out with a very good friend of mine at the time, just hanging out, laughing, having a good time. As the Sunday afternoon came to a close, we headed back to our respected cars. Inside my car, checked my phone for messages, and there was a message from my wife saying, "I don't know where you're at, but I know who you're with. When you get home, you need to be willing to have a serious conversation about our marriage, or else I'm going to need to seek a divorce attorney." Needless to say, that voicemail got my attention. Needless to say, when I got home, we had the first of many long conversations. You see, by now, you figured out that I was involved in an emotional affair. An emotional affair that started a few weeks earlier with a coworker. Fortunately, things didn't escalate beyond that. However, I don't want to minimize my actions and the impact and consequences that they had. You see, you don't arrive in those type of situations overnight. They're a series of poor decisions, unhealthy decisions, not spiritual, mature decisions. That process with my wife and those conversations led us both to our knees. It was the final thing that God used to bring me, a prideful, stubborn young man at that time, to my knees to start seeking Him in a more intentional, deeper way. And my wife, too, for that matter. We both began to study the Bible with a group of believers. We both started to attend a church that we knew about from other friends. And I was baptized a few weeks later after this incident that I described to you. And I was able to turn around and baptize my wife on the same stage a couple minutes later. March 14th, 2004, the day we were redeemed. See, God not only saved our marriage, but He saved our souls. And what I'd like to talk to you about today is, yes, love back from the brink. God did that. But for all of you that are on this call today that are married, you understand how precious the bond of marriage is. You understand also how much work goes into it. But it's also a labor of love, right? But we all get into habits that need to change. We all get into things that need maturing. And I want to give you just 3 points today that are part of a bigger program that I've developed. But I think the mistakes that I made, I think you'll be able to relate to them today. I took my wife for granted. We had already been married for 8 years, almost 8 years at this point. I was working 2 jobs, thought I was doing the right thing. We needed the money. I was literally working 105 hours a week between 2 jobs. And I would leave one job and go 2 miles away to the second job. And then I would work that job overnight, shower, and then go back to the daytime job. I literally wasn't seeing her from the time I left home Monday morning until Friday late afternoon. Now, you guys are all like, there's no way that's going to work. It's a recipe for disaster. And you're right, it was. But I was blind to it at the time. I took her for granted. So the first thing I'd like to bring to your attention is gratitude is vital. Gratitude is crucial in our relationships, especially our marriages. But we've got to choose it. It's a choice. And I've always said, I'm not smart enough to hold more than one dominant thought at a time. I don't know about you. I think that's most of us, but I know that's the case for me. If I'm worrying, if I'm not trusting God, if I'm doubting, anxious, fearful, whatever descriptive word you want to put in there, that's going to dominate my thoughts for the next little while. But if I choose gratitude, I've learned that it pushes all that negative stuff out, and that becomes my dominant thought. So how do I apply that towards my wife? Because we don't always agree on everything. We don't always have the same approach. We're two different people, but God has brought us together as one flesh. So I always want to choose to be grateful for her. I want to pray for her every day. I want to tell her specifically the reason why I'm grateful for her. I appreciate Lori bringing up adoption in her talk. Some of you that know me, I won't go into it long on this particular talk, but my wife and I had 5 miscarriages in 5 years before we became Christians in 2004. And we started praying about adoption. And a couple of years later, we began a 5-year adoption journey that had 6 failed adoptions, a couple of them very intense that I won't share here. And going into our 5th year, our adoption agency parted ways with us. We never found out why, but we think it's because we crossed the 40-year-old threshold and they didn't want to work with us anymore. But that's okay, because God is bigger. God is the God of Ephesians 3:20 that Paul said. God is a God of immeasurably more than we could ask or imagine. So go at the 5-year mark, God gave us 3 children at one time. We were praying for one. They weren't triplets, by the way. They were a 4-year-old, a soon-to-be 3-year-old, and a 1-month-old baby. God is faithful. God was able to restore my marriage. Where are you in your marital journey right now? You may not be 48 hours away from your spouse seeking a divorce attorney. I hope you're not. But I can promise you that if some habits don't change, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but it could possibly be the train. And I don't want to see that train come your way. Okay, so we've got to be grateful for our spouses. The other thing that I just wasn't good at as a young husband, I was terrible with my communication. I made lots of assumptions or just didn't communicate well at all. And it was during this time that I described to you when we were at our lowest, that period of time of a few weeks before we became Christians, that we sought a marital counselor. Yeah, I needed to humble out and get some help for me and for our marriage. And I remember the counselor asking my wife how she felt after I described some details about what was going on. And at that time, my wife had lost a lot of weight quickly. She wasn't eating very much and was just very anxious in general, as you would imagine. And she said to the counselor, "This is killing me." And what I didn't know then, the counselor was teaching us the speaker listener technique. And she said to me, "Steve, what did you hear Rebecca say?" And I said, "She said it's hurting her." You see, typical husband wasn't listening very closely. And she said, "No, Rebecca, can you repeat back to Steve what you just said? Steve, it's killing me. And it's like typical guy moment. Oh, duh. And it hit me. It hit me in my heart. This is what my consequences have done to my bride. And it impacted me and it made me want to change and be better. We had a long way to go. But my second thing I want to communicate to you is wealthy communication is crucial in your marriage. I'm a huge advocate today of the speaker listener technique. We've done this countless of times. What you guys don't all know is I'm a full-time minister now. Tell me that's not all God. And we've gotten with several couples over those 15 years that I've been in ministry. We just did this 2 weeks ago at a dinner with a couple that hit a little bump in their marriage, and we taught them the speaker listener technique. And while I don't have time to get into all that technique today, it's great because the example I gave you with the therapist is an example from that technique. And you use lots of this is how this makes me feel versus pointing and saying you, which only puts the other person on the defensive, and those conversations don't go well. Okay. The other mistake I made, and I made many, I'm grateful that I only get to name 3 today, but I made many, is I wasn't good at making time, quality time with Rebecca. I just didn't know how to make it a priority. And so we have to be intentional with the quality time we invest in our spouses. We have to be intentional about date nights, prayer times, just having a set time in the day where we set aside, if you've got kids and a busy life and you're both working, it may be 10 or 15 minutes a day and you build up that muscle from there. But how's your day? Make it about them for 15 minutes. What was your high point? What was your low point? What could have been better? One of the questions we love to ask is, if you could describe your day in just 3 words, what would it be? And you'd be amazed how powerful that exercise is. It really makes you think to narrow it down to 3 words. So again, to reiterate, wherever you are on your marital journey, it's a safe bet to say it could always be better. And so I don't have any slides for you today, but it's easy. stevewormer.com. I'll put it in the chat when we're done. If anything I've said today resonates a little bit, I'd like to give you a free gift. Just go to stevewormer.com under the resources tab and sign up. Just all you have to do is put your email in there, and I'll give you my free ebook on hearing God by choosing gratitude. You usually sell it for a shade under $15. I'll give it away to you. I'd love to. But if I've said something that really hits your heart today, deeper than intrigue, I want you to know you're not alone. I've been there. I want to help. And I'd love for you to go to stevewormer.com and simply book a 30-minute clarity call with me. It's free. I just want to get to know you. I want to help in any way I can. And during that talk, I'd be glad to tell you about a new program that I'm developing. It's a group coaching program for spouses that want to help reignite the spark and connection in their marriage. But it's been my honor to share with you today. Thank you, all of you beautiful speakers. Can't wait to hear the rest of you speak today. Thank you for letting me share. To God be the glory.